if we could always just somehow magically produce a good price for farmers that want to milk cows, that would make the world a lot better place.
Welcome back to the Dairy Podcast Show. My name is Barry Bradford from Michigan State University. Today it's a pleasure to welcome Thom Peterson to the show. Mr. Petersen is the Minnesota Department of Agriculture Commissioner. Thom has spent most of his life working for his family and his own horse and farm businesses, and the Petersens have shown horses around the state and have competed at the Minnesota State Fair for over 25 years. Before he was appointed commissioner, Petersen served as the Director of Government Relations for the Minnesota Farmers Union beginning in 2002, where he was working in both Washington, D.C. and in St. Paul on behalf of the MFU. He was initially appointed the Department of Ag Commissioner in 2019 and was reappointed in 2023. So Commissioner Petersen, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us today.
Great. I appreciate the opportunity to join you.
So did you grow up on a family farm? Is that what I understand?
Yeah, I grew up working on family farms, and then I bought family. Decided to get out on our own when I was a young man, and we bought a pretty good size operation and got into it full time with my mom and as my partner. And we're in the horse business, still are, and my mom has been and dad have been my partner. A lot of the years, and then along the way we pick up cows and both cows and dairy goats. So I always had friends a lot of friends and relatives that milk cows. My grandpa was a dairy farmer. Some of my close relatives and best friends are. So pretty familiar with the industry and always been interesting.
Curious, what breed of horses?
Well, we have quite a few different. We raised Appaloosas most of our life, and then about 30 some years ago, we got into miniature horses and ponies. And so we have a pony farm, and just finished my 30th year showing those at our state fair here this last weekend. And so really fun to be hanging around with all the livestock and competing and doing that too as well. So a lot of fun, but a hot week at the state fair.
Yeah, not kidding.
When it comes to raising healthy animals, you need more than the right solutions. You need the right partner who brings decades of industry expertise and a global team to put that knowledge to work for the advancement of your operation. At Phibro Animal Health Corporation, we are proud to work with you as your trusted partner.
So I saw on the department website the mission statement, which I thought was really well done. And so it says that the mission of the Department of Agriculture is to enhance all Minnesotans' quality of life by equitably ensuring the integrity of our food supply, the health of our environment, and the strength and resilience of our agricultural economy. I think super well done, and it speaks to interfacing with the industry and also with the rest of the state, right, with consumers. So I'm curious, and maybe there's no good answer, but I'm curious what a typical day looks like for you. Are you mostly interfacing with the ag community or speaking on behalf of ag to other audiences?
Yeah, it's funny. Mission statements are, it's funny all the work that goes into those. So I appreciate that. And, it's really interesting, but it does really guide our work. We just want to, hopefully have our farmers be successful and our businesses be successful, and we want to feed a lot of people, and so that's kind of what a normal day looks like, as might meet with farmers. Today I'm in the office and it's pretty much scheduled from 9 to 5 with meetings. Then I'm going to head out to southern Minnesota tonight for a Farm Bureau County annual meeting to visit with those folks. I think it's really important to get out. But during the day, we meet with a lot of whether it's industry executives, companies, a lot of Minnesotans that have issues. We do a lot of internal meetings talking about one thing, and dairy is really a big issue right now is Pfas. And how that's going to impact dairy. Tomorrow, I'm actually hitting the road and traveling up to Northwest Minnesota. Minnesota's a big state, 7 hours top to bottom. I'm actually going to be stopping to visit 3 different dairy farms tomorrow that are kind of struggling through different issues and pieces on my way. And so that's really important. I'm a type of person who likes to see things firsthand.
Great. I'm sure that helps you do a better job of steering the ship. How many employees are sort of under the auspices of the department there?
Yeah, so we have about 500 employees. Many of those might be seasonal. They might do potato inspections, emerald ash borer inspections, different hemp inspections. So we have a lot of inspection staff. We have a lot of promotion, marketing, and promotion staff. The governor is in the department. We're doing a trade mission to Japan next week and Australia in November and the Mid East in January. So a lot of planning goes into that. We do a lot of grant programs for the department, for example, for dairy, really trying to help promote those. But then also a lot of work on water, as we mentioned. Minnesota's the land of 10,000 lakes, and a lot of work that needs to be done there.
Yeah, sounds like a busy job. So specifically, you've already started into this a little bit, but I'm curious, thinking specifically about the dairy industry, are there a handful of key issues that always come up that you see as the main things that the industry in your state is facing?
Yeah, for me, as somebody who I always try to be close to the farmers, is price is always number one. I would just like if we could always just somehow magically produce a good price for farmers that want to milk cows, that would make the world a lot better place. And and milk marketing is very challenging, and prices, Minnesota, we have just under 2,000 dairy farms. We've lost a lot in the last few years, a lot of consolidation in the industry. And those that are really committed to it right now are the ones that, we really want to focus on trying to make their life easier, and so whether that's helping them install robotics or changing up their system somewhat is really important, but then also working with our processing plants in Minnesota and upgrading those that can be aging infrastructure sometimes, really bringing it into the 21st century, something that is very important for Minnesota. So we'll see, but I really enjoy working with the dairy industry. It's excellent folks.
A lot of excellent producers there for sure from an outside perspective. You mentioned PFAS. I want to touch on that real quick. So for some people listening maybe aren't familiar with that term, but a lot of people are calling these forever chemicals because they take so long to degrade. And there was a dairy in the Southwest U.S. that had to be completely shut down because it was near an Air Force installation where these chemicals were used as a fire retardant. And accumulated in the soil over years. Are there particular industries, I guess, that dairies are near that this is coming to the top in terms of concerns?
Yeah, and so Minnesota and our legislature is something that we're going to look at to see where we think that it is, in the next couple of years, or where it's coming from, and really try to establish some of that before we, go and do that extreme where we have to close down farms. And you said it right on the forever chemicals. It's a concern. Some of it may be in wastewater treatment is one of the places we've been looking and trying to see, but also try to come up with remediation. It's kind of in its early stages and everything, but there are ways to potentially mitigate PFAS as we see. And so dairy is always, it's an important or an interesting thing, but we want to make sure we have the right data. And so our legislature is taking, I think, a thoughtful approach, and that we're going to study it, for a couple of years and really get our hand on it before we start phasing out things. And we also need to just be aware of where it might be. But I look at that wastewater, in my area, it comes out as biosolids. A lot of times it's free. It's an incredible soil amendment, but it may hold PFAS in it. But I think then we have to look at is there a safe level for that, to be in it? Is it parts per million, billion, or trillion? And what are the effects on that? So it's a very serious issue and something that Minnesota has, taken a big step into looking at that in the coming years.
Yeah, the biosolids piece is frustrating because that's been a service basically farms have provided to society, right? We'll take these nutrients that you don't have a good place to take them, and it helps the farms hopefully. But this is a case where maybe down the road it's a headache for those farms. But we'll hope we find some good remediation tools. Another thing I was curious from your perspective, are there programs in Minnesota or other states that dairy farmers can benefit from but are often unaware of?
Yeah, that's a good point. The big thing for us right there, is no doubt in Minnesota this summer and across the nation, dairy prices have been tough. And The big thing we're proud of in Minnesota is the DMC program that's part of the Dairy Margin Coverage Program. It's part of the Farm Bill. Minnesota has the highest enrollment in that program. And so we always want people to be aware of that. The Farm Bill expires here at the end of September. And as we're looking at re enrolling that, we think it's been a good safety net for farmers. It's not a catch all, but it's been helpful. And what Minnesota did at our state legislature to show the value of our dairy farmers was to pay the premium for the farmers. And so dairy farmers in Minnesota also got a state payment if you enrolled in DMC. Our legislature reauthorized that. So when the next farm bill comes, that's a really important piece. We also at our department have dairy business planning grants that help. If you want to make a change to your dairy, maybe you want to put in robots, maybe you want to expand, do different things. You can get a planning grant to do some of the work to lay the groundwork for that. And then we also have programs such as livestock investment grant in Minnesota, where we'll pay 10% of a project or modernization. A lot of times you want to upgrade, or still got people in tie stall barns that want to upgrade to a parlor or something like that and save those knees and everything else. And so we have that, and a priority is for dairy in that too as well. And so we've also done some unique things in Minnesota where we maybe really trying to just sell more milk, and so and that starts with kids. And so instead of doing cartons, we did um, grants for the old school milk dispensers in school, so you're not having to fumble with a carton or a jug. You just go to the thing and hold that lever, and you get those that cold milk. We did a lot of those grants, and we see a lot of interest from schools. And so, yeah, just always just encouraging farmers to talk to their local department, sign up for our e-newsletter, talk to your FSA office, make sure you know what's out there. We got a drought right now in Minnesota, and farmers, there's assistance there for them, but you got to get in and talk to it. So always a good question. So communication, making sure people know all the different things that are available to them. We also, not to harp on, we also have a great loan programs at the department. Not that farmers need another loan, but those are always things too that do help farmers that are in tough situations.
Okay. Yeah. How does that fit, I guess, amongst like the farm credit system and the private banks? Is this kind of a different target audience?
No, it's kind of piggybacks, and you can stack some of those. So, to buy a farm, a lot of times too, to getting into dairy is still a place where you can get in if you can put something together on that smaller angle. Right now, it's tough because you got to find somewhere to sell your milk. But you can get into a barn and start milking cows if you can put a loan together, a loan package. So a lot of times you'll see folks stack a loan with the FSA. We call it our Rural Finance Authority, or RFA, and then piggyback that with lending from Farm Credit. And we guarantee part of the loan. We have a beginning farmer loan that guarantees 45% of the loan, and that helps a lot. So, and our organizations in Minnesota work together, those banking entities, to stack those for beginning farmers. And we're excited about that because in Minnesota, trying to bring that next generation has been a top priority. We have a beginning farmer tax credit too. If you're buying from, you're a beginning farmer and you're buying from somebody who is maybe not a relative or something. We also have a down payment assistance where you can get $15,000 to buy a farm, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I can tell you, as somebody who's bought a couple of farms, that to have that extra cash going into a purchase agreement really helps. So we're excited to see. It's a hard thing to look at every month when we look at how many dairy farms quit. And that's nature. But I always tell our staff, and I always look at, if we look every month, there's some that are starting too. And I said, let's dig into those folks that are maybe transferring or decided they want to come back in dairy. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So sometimes we got to just put together a package for that and treat it just like any other business. When the widget factory wants to move to Minnesota, or North Dakota or Wisconsin, we all jump over each other to try to bring that widget factory in. And we look at it when somebody wants to get into dairying or different types of agriculture, we want to jump all over them to bring them in.
That's a great attitude. Do you know, I've heard these numbers for ag in general, but the dairy industry in Minnesota or nationally, the average age of an operator, is it in that 60 range?
I'd say it's in the 60 range because, Minnesota, the average age of a farmer is 57. And but when you look at dairy farms, you look at that is concerning. And so that's why in Minnesota we've, put these beginning farmer loans together through our RFA. We've started the beginning farmer credit and the down payment assistance. We also have a program in Minnesota called our Emerging Farmers Office that we've brought in and funded because a lot of our dairy farmers, Minnesota's population's changing rapidly, and we're seeing people. A lot of people that don't look like me, mid 50s, white male, looks like the average farmer. And that's not always the case in Minnesota. And so we see a lot of Latino, Hmong farmers that serve a different community and really getting into it. And some of the Latino farmers, especially, it's really exciting to see opportunities that they have within dairy, knowledge that they bring second, third, fourth generation now that are managing large herds, that are starting herds of their own. And so we're trying to be as supportive of that as possible. And it's exciting to see the opportunities that we have. So, and then just spending time at our state fair with all of our 4-H and FFA leaders and being at our dairy showcase and seeing our brightest future stars, people that are going back to those legacy dairy farms in the state. So a lot of good stuff happening, and it's hard sometimes because you look at, folks getting out of it and, so it's good to see the things that are positive.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think it's easy to focus on the negative, right? Kind of the news cycle thing, but you're right. If you look, there's just as many good stories. One other area I wanted to ask you about, you're in a position now where people are always trying to bend your ear, but you spent some time sort of advocating for farmers in the state house and at the federal level. I'm just curious, what advice do you have for dairy producers or anybody in the industry who wants to engage with elected officials?
Yeah, I always say be involved, and I said that I had a farmer just call me here a little bit ago, and he felt bad about calling me and bothering me. And I said, don't ever feel that way. I said, how am I going to know about your problems if you don't call me, and your issues? And maybe I can try to do something better or make your life a little easier. And I, not every person has that power, but in doing this for a long time in my career, I've seen the power of it. I think about my neighbor, and he has some connections into me. He's a dairy farmer. He milks 40 cows. He's on the first name basis with our senators, Senator Klobuchar, Senator Smith, the governor, because he's involved in Farmers Union or Farm Bureau or milk producers, he has that opportunity that they care what he thinks about. They remember what he says, but he chooses to milk his cows and go into a meeting at night or take his Saturdays to go down, our weekend to go to the DC to visit with different people or come down to a lobby day at the Capitol and got to know people, but it makes a difference, and so when, I'm with one of our senators and I say, hey, what's your neighbor Al think about this? And they, and that's pretty cool. And it's as simple as that you do have the power. People do listen to folks, but if you, I always like when I go talk to young folks at like our colleges and the kids that are going back to the farm, and I always say like get involved, start your farm, but then get involved, because I said you can get mad about things, and I'd say I'd get mad when I was on the tractor, and but it's cool when you're involved because you can pick up the phone and call me, or you can call your legislator, and you can make a difference. So I think that's what's I always encourage people that I've seen. That you might say the most average farmer can have the greatest impact, so that's a great question.
Okay, good. So show up. That's the message. Yeah.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid not to. Yep.
It's time for our famous 3. Typical fresh cow incidence of clinical hypocalcemia is 3 to 6%, while subclinical hypocalcemia affects 50% or more mature cows. Based on cutting-edge research, Exelite offers a new approach that is build effective and the ZDUs. For more information, visit www.protecta.com.
Okay, well, there's 3 questions we throw at every guest, and we're not going to let you sidestep these. So they're not really gotcha questions, but I think they're a little hard to answer off shooting from the hip. But let's see what we can do here. So, what is your favorite ag-related book or resource?
Wow, that's a really interesting one. Ag-related book. I like to look at history, and I think that agriculture history repeats itself. And I did one of my stories about James J. Hill, who was a lumber baron and a railroad baron, built a Union Pacific. I think of Willard Cochran or Orville Freeman in our building. So anything about James J. Hill, Empire Builder, is a good book. But it really talks about, because we look at dairy, for example, say, oh, we're just getting big and bigger and bigger, or our wheat farms. Well, we did that in the 1890s. We had Bonanza Farms, and they went bust, and we had these cycles. We did that in the 40s after World War II, where we had these cycles. Dick Levins, he was a professor at the University of Minnesota. There's a great book about Willard Cochran, who was a professor and who ended up, advised President Kennedy about farm policies. But everything's a cycle. And as I read ag policy, you look at how these things repeat themselves. So I always say, like, anything like that is I'm interested in, and always cool to see. One other thing I do is I buy books from farmers that I know. It's amazing how many farmers write books, and or write, and I have a bookshelf full of them, even behind me and stuff. So always interesting.
That's great. Good answers. I have a brother-in-law that will spend hours looking at the plat book from there. It's fascinating, and he knows the history. That's really cool. Okay, what's your favorite book or resource outside of agriculture?
Oh, well, outside of agriculture, I oddly enough, book is, hard to say. I really like sports a lot. I'm a big sports person. So, trying to think what I've been reading lately. Anything sports related is kind of fun for me. It's good to have a distraction away from that, and so sports do that for me. And so anything with that is always interesting.
That makes sense. Okay, and then the last question. In your opinion, what sets successful professionals apart from those who are less successful?
Oh, that's an easy one for me, is team building and having a great team and using your whole team. Here at our Department of Agriculture, like we talked about, I have 500 employees, and I want to use every one of them as much as they want to be involved, and then some, and so I look at whether it's our deputy commissioner, assistant commissioners, my assistant, as we try to include everybody. There's certain things that a commissioner has to do, but the more you can do as a team and then use your team, it makes you stronger. And, it can take a small team and make it a big team, and so I'm a real team player. So I think that's makes you, I'm glad to stand on their success, and so that's they make me look good, and so, but you got to give them an opportunity to make you look good. And so that's definitely a big piece that I like to do.
Great. I think that's good advice for most dairy farmers as well. That's a good point. Well, Commissioner Petersen, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Any parting words of wisdom for the show?
No, I appreciate the opportunity, and it's dairy's always an interesting thing. It looks great 1 month, and then it's challenges, and we just appreciate everybody that's in the industry. Minnesota is a great place to dairy with the water and the feed that we have available, and so we look forward to the next few years and see what happens. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you a little bit today.
Well, thank you. Well, this has been another episode of the Dairy Podcast Show. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the button before you leave, and we'll see you next time.